In the previous parts of the F-4E-45MC's ASN-63 INS discussion, that was a mouthful, we have seen how these devices suffer from an intrinsic problem: drift. In simple terms, the determined position tends to differ from the real position increasingly as the flight progresses. Moreover, hard maneuvers tend to exacerbate the issue. A solution, as long as the issue is confined to this positional error, is to perform a so-called fix update. Ergo, updating the position where the INS thinks the Phantom 2 is, thus annulling the existing error. The primary tool for performing a TACAN fix update is the BDHI, which stands for Bearing Distance Heading Indicator. When a TACAN station is selected, the crew obtains bearing and range from the aircraft to the emitter. The idea is to create a waypoint pointing towards the same location and adjust the aeroplane's position counters so that both match. Confused? Let's break it down. There are two main issues related to this operation. In primis, the perspective. To better explain this concept, let's divide the BDHI into two, one whose input is the selected TACAN station, the second fed by the INS. Let's start with the TACAN reference. As the Phantom flies around, the BDHI constantly points towards the emitter's position, with some accuracy caveats depending on range, intrinsic imprecision, etc. This situation is quite simple and straightforward, as this is how most waypoints, navaids, and so on work. When the WISO manipulates the INS's location instead, the perspective changes. As discussed in the first video of the series, the INS does not see the world outside. Ergo, changing the position counters cause the world to move around accordingly. Note that in this example I am purposely disregarding the magnetic variation. For simplicity's sake, let's freeze the whole planet and check the BDHI indication for the TACAN station, circa 090, 11 nautical miles. According to the INS, instead we have 155, 5 nautical miles. Our INS definitely needs a fix update. These considerations lead to the second point. What has been discussed so far implies that bearing and range are not changed directly. They result from the INS fix's position. In other terms, the WISO does not have a counter for the bearing and one for the range, but has to fiddle with latitude and longitude to achieve the desired result. The problem of working with latitude and longitude coordinates to match the distance and the angle between 2 points is that we can end up with confusing results. For example, the behaviour of the range between position A and position B is an inverted Gaussian with, at the bottom, the correct range. Ergo, as the WISO manipulates the counters, the range or bearing may decrease, reach the desired value, and then increase again. What makes the operation even trickier is that once a parameter matches, setting the other may disrupt it. INS fix updates can be performed with the help of a ground controller. The procedure by the book, as envisioned 40 or more years ago, is very similar to the TACAN update. A reference point is created on the location of the GCI. The controller provides bearing and distance to such a point, and the WISO adjusts the counters to match the values. It is as simple as that. That said, I may have found a quicker way to perform such a fix update, which is also more suited to the common DCS experience. It involves a controller, Bullseye, and the alpha check request. Let's call it the Bullseye update. Why is this idea potentially better than standard GCI update? In premise, the WISO may already have the Bullseye set in the target counters. Therefore, this check can become routine and be performed now and then without taking too many mental resources or time. The TACAN method instead requires fiddling with the BDHI input. If the Bullseye is used, the crew probably has access to a spider card. This tool allows the crew to visualize the drift, immediately determine the correction required, and have a general idea of which axis needs it the most. Moreover, this method works everywhere, as the Bullseye is a point on a map, not necessarily corresponding to a geographical location or feature. The drawback of such flexibility is that the farther the range from the Bullseye, the greater the potential imprecision. In the case of DCS, AI AWACS are more ubiquitous than TACAN stations on several maps, especially on casual servers, allowing crews to perform the INS update with ease. In this example, the Phantom 2 is travelling following its flight plan. The Bullseye coordinates are already set in the usual position, target 1. For simplicity's sake, active pause is enabled. In normal conditions, the WISO must ensure the operation is completed quickly and efficiently. As discussed, the crew can request an alpha check on the AI wax frequency. Here the AI will respond with the Bullseye location from the fighter's position. To verify the INS's drift, the WISO can switch to target 1 and compare bearing and range. Note that the provided bearing ignores the magnetic variation, which is circa 6.5 degrees in the Phantom's position at this date.
Overlord 1-1, in field 1, alpha check from Bull's picture. In field 1, Overlord 1-1, Bull 329-435.
The current set of bearing and distance matches the BDHI once accounted for the magnetic variation. Let's now mess up with the current INS fix and see if we can sort out the problem. After some fiddling, the Bullseye is located at circa 287.26. Target 1 was 325.35, now is circa 267.25. Quite a difference. So let's play with the position counters and see if we can improve the situation. This process definitely requires some practice, especially considering that the Phantom 2 should be moving, not standing still as in this case. If you have noticed, the result was acceptable after the first adjustment. I tried to increase the precision even more, spending considerable time fiddling with latitude and longitude. This is usually not worth it. The drawback of the discussed methods is the delay between data gathering and update execution, which causes intrinsic imprecision. Another issue is the accuracy of the avionics itself, since the target and position counters have limited precision and the primary tool used is the BDHI. Once again, a certain degree of imprecision is expected. On the other hand, these methods allow the crew to perform an INS update with a great deal of flexibility. For example, they do not require flying over a specific reference to perform the update. I hope you have found this video useful. If you have, please consider liking and subscribing. Thanks for watching, and take care.